Welcome to Mike's City Point Terminal Model Railroad. I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm going to kind of go over how I do research and how I figure out how things should be modeled. At the start here, I started with a map that was drawn in June of 1865 of the City Point facilities. And this is kind of how I started. I basically wanted to model this as accurately as possible. So what I did was I took this map and I broke it up into modules. Actually, let me click this so that each of these modules contains a part of the railroad, including the wharfs and basically the track leading into the facility. So I broke that up, and what I broke it up into was modules that fit in the purple here is 4x8 sections of like a piece of plywood would be. So you can see all these sections fit on a 4x8, and almost virtually all of them are smaller than a 4x8 because a 4x8 is actually kind of hard to handle. Like these first two sections I'm modeling, and I have built, let me take off the 4x8 overlay here. Whoops, the other one. This section and this section are about 6.5 feet long. The next section I'm going to model is the railroad wharf here, and that's actually a little less than 6.5 feet, but they all fit in this 4x8 sheet of plywood form factor. And I've basically done that for virtually the whole railroad here. So that's kind of how I started it. So I'm trying to map this thing as model it as accurately as possible. So if you look, actually clicked right there. This is the section I'm going to talk about today, and if you look on the other model, it starts right here, and there's a defensive and earthworks here, and that's when I talk about how I figured out how to model this earthworks here. So you can see the modules cut out here. It just contains 3 tracks and 4 switches and these earthworks on the bluffs above the railroad cut here. So first thing I did was I did some searches. I basically captured all the images I could of the City Point area, and this one is labeled as being part of the defensive works of City Point. And there's an entrenchment here, and there's basically they put down sharpened trees to impede the progress of anybody trying to get in. But what I don't see is the back side of the earthworks, how they modeled that. And but I did determine by comparing this view to the map. If you look here over to the left side of there's some water here. There's a road passing through the earthworks, and there's a bend here. So by carefully looking at the map, and this is the other map of the whole City Point line, you can see the only place on the defensive earthworks where there's a left-hand bend right here. See that left-hand bend as you're looking away from the picture is right here, and lo and behold, to the left there's some water, and then there's a road going through the earthworks. So I was able to determine where this picture's taken. I believe in all likelihood that picture was taken like right here in this. My railroad's over on this section here. So, but the key thing is I know this picture is of the earthworks. It's of the same line of entrenchments. The entrenchments I'm modeling is over here, so it should be constructed in a similar way. So I know how the face and the ditch of the earthworks are constructed. I can see they had the abattis in front of it, and so I know how to model this part of the earthworks. I'm kind of assuming the rest of the earthworks is all built the same way, but I don't know how the back side of the earthworks. And I'll show you. There's different ways that was done. You could have these gabions piled with sand or filled with and blocked up. Now this is an artillery position, but you can see that there's that. And then I found this great website, petersburgproject.org, that's beyond the crater. They had this page that shows how basically soldiers tore down buildings to put up the earthworks, but there's a lot of good pictures here of the earthworks themselves. And this shows stacks of trees with bracing holding them up, and this is also an artillery position. There's kind of dirt mounds. Here's some more of these gabions. This case they have this sort of defense instead of just the sharpened sticks, but in this one you have two different types of barricades behind the earthworks. So, there's different ways that these earthworks could have been put together. So I couldn't see the back side of the earthworks from that picture, so I wasn't sure which way they went, but I wanted to know. So here's another one with a combination of different things. So anyway, this was a really cool site. And it had some good pictures and shows kind of how the earthworks could have been constructed from different materials or different fashions. So I found another picture, and this is a picture of, I believe, Fort Abbott, which if you go back to this picture is this fort at the corner here. I believe it's this fort at the corner here or this fort, one of these two places at City Point. Once again, you can see the deep trench, the slopes, but you can't see the backside of the earthworks, how it's constructed. There's no abattis here, but so I found a number of pictures of earthworks in the Petersburg area, and some of these are attributed to City Point. So I kept searching, and one thing that's handy is you can look at a modern map, and this Fort Abbott Park is still existent. It's the only part of the earthworks that's still existent, but you can use Google Earth View and see, okay, it's here, the railroad comes in, it still actually exists. It comes in here, so there was a line of earthworks here and came up over there. So you can see kind of where Fort Abbott was, but probably this, I'm actually not sure. This, you look at the modern roads, they're still kind of the same. It comes up and over, and yeah, maybe it's this guy here where Fort Abbott was. But in any case, you can use even the modern maps to help determine where things are. But then I kept digging, and I noticed this picture. And I've seen this picture before, but I never really identified where it was. But as I was looking to try to find what the backside of this earthworks was, I noticed this picture, and I noticed back here it looked like there might have been a line of earthworks. So then I had to determine where this building was. So I went all the way back to the original map of City Point, and this thing is constructed in a U shape, right? So let's see where there's U-shaped buildings, and it's pretty clear. It's nowhere here, nowhere here. At first I was thinking maybe it was a bakery, but there's no U-shaped buildings at the bakery. Well, it's obviously part of the bullpen or the barracks, and this was essentially the prison for this space. And if you look at the picture, the U shape kind of points diagonally toward the line. So you can see in the back of this right here is actually a picture of this here, this bastion here, or fort, whatever you want to call it. And you can see the clear land behind it, and there's some camping going on here. They call this whole area a campground, but it looks like when this picture was taken, I could look it up and find out, see if possibly even find out when this bullpen was constructed. But I suspect it was in the fall of 1864, just off the top of my head, but I could definitely do some more research. But the interesting thing is these pictures have such high resolution detail. I was able to drill in and basically see, you can barely make it out with the scan of this image, the vertical posts and the horizontal logs that make up the backside of the earthworks. And you can also see how there's a firing step. Basically, when you build an earthworks, you build it above head high and put a little mound of earth behind it. So if you weren't actively engaged in shooting, you weren't, your head wasn't sticking above the earthworks. So you could see how that's constructed here. And so from that, I was able to determine how the inside of the earthworks are built at City Point, and now I just got to go and model it. So I was pretty lucky that I was able to find this picture, and basically I have a bunch of files with all the pictures I can find of City Point, and I just stick them in there in different categories. Like this is probably in the unidentified section because I haven't really figured out exactly where it was, but now I know I can move it. So this is kind of what I wanted to show you. There's one more thing that wasn't useful in this case, but has some limited use sometimes, is I will look in regimental histories of units that either passed through City Point or were based there. Now it turns out the 18th New Hampshire worked on these the defenses at City Point. They were raised very late in the war. Basically got to the front early 1865 in pieces. They were so desperate for men they sent them before the whole regiment was raised. But so I found the regimental histories online and scanned. So sometimes you can find in these regimental histories little tidbits or interesting things. And so I just wanted to point out that not only do you have visual references, but these regimental histories can be useful too. Now, when I decided to model City Point, at first I wanted to model it in December of 1864 when the 6th Corps, there's very few mass troop movements through City Point. Usually it's just troops coming and going on furlough or whatever. But in December of 1864, the 6th Corps returned from their Valley campaign to to the Petersburg front through City Point. And so I was thinking, well, I'll model City Point in December 1864. Well, in the end, I decided to actually move this back to the end of March because it's more interesting time. They were still constructing wharves and buildings in December, January, February. So the completion of the base, they probably still would have been building it if they didn't break through in early April 1865. But I picked the end of March because General Sherman and Abraham Lincoln were there for a famous conference. And there's two different books on Lincoln's visit to City Point, and it gives you descriptions of bands playing out in the river, and just kind of an amazing period. Just 7 miles from the front lines. And I think I could have, if I model that time when Lincoln's there at City Point. Also, the Battle of Fort Stedman occurred, and the Confederate prisoners passed through City Point to prisons up north right at that same time. I mean, Lincoln was there at City Point at the time of the Battle of Fort Stedman. So there's Confederate prisoners passing through, there's famous conferences of famous generals, there's bands playing. It's just kind of an all around amazing point in history. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm modeling, how I do research, how I look up things. And the other thing is, City Point is such a great place to model because it's like one of the most photographed locations of all the Civil War. I think it's the third most, according to Gary Adelman, behind Washington, D.C., and I forgot what the second most, but basically Petersburg/City Point is extremely well documented through photographs. So that's making my job easier, and this is just an example of it. Anyway, I wanted to share that, and hope you have a great day. Thanks for visiting. Bye.